Talk shoes. Recorded live.
Welcome, everyone, to the broadcast with Free Waves Radio. We have a very, very special guest with us this afternoon from Montana, Dan Nelson, who will be joining us in just a moment. As you know, that the name of this broadcast today is called Water Waves. There's a lot to those two words. There's many things to do with water and waves together other than what we're normally thinking about when we're thinking about the surfers out there on their surfboards on the beach. We're going to be talking about the things that have been done with water since the beginning of time. When the Spirit of God moved across the face of the waters, many things changed. We know that's true. We know it wasn't a sightseeing vacation. There was some incredible things, some miraculous things going on at that time long, long ago. We're going to be talking about frequency and wave theory having to do with water. We're going to be talking about some people making some bad waves with water concerning what's going on with water in the world today, especially in our own country, where we're having to deal with seriously polluted water, people putting things into the water, or even our own governments putting chemicals into the water that's greatly affecting people. And a lot of doctors are talking about it and are very disturbed about what's going on with the chemical chloramine. If you had to be tuning in to the radio broadcast on Sunday, we had we got to listen to Dr. Wynn Parker on Republic Radio talking about this just this Sunday. And he's brought a lot of attention to the problems with chloramine and the fact that many of our municipalities across the United States are being threatened with high fines if they do not put this dangerous chemical into the water. What the doctors have brought out is that it's causing problems with kidney failure all across the United States, and many people do not even realize that it's going on. 1 out of 9 people have kidney failure, and they don't even know it. The dialysis clinics are filling up more and more all of the time, and it's causing a very serious problem. Now, where this has effect with our Commonwealth is that what we want to do is address these issues as far as what we're doing with the Free Waves Outreach Mission. One of the things that's been discussed is what we want to put our efforts towards is health care and donations towards health care and helping people. One of the most important things that we can do with food is provide good drinking water. And there's people right now meeting at the United Nations today from around the world, and one of the big discussions, or topics I should say, is going to be the discussion of water. Believe it or not, folks, they're talking about our water and what they're going to do with it, what they're going to put in it, where they're going to be rerouting and doing a lot of things with water. So it's important to us with the Commonwealth that we understand the importance. And then what the broadcast is going to be about, we're going to try to help you understand the value of water and the importance and the priority that this subject deserves. So with that said, I'd like to introduce our honored guest today, Dan Nelson from Montana. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thank you.
How's the weather up there in Montana today?
Well, it's not too bad. A little breezy and in the 50s. It'll probably be topping out over 60, but definitely fall is in the air.
Fall is in the air. It's been here, too. It warmed back up again today, but it's definitely cooling down, and I'm so glad to see it because there's been some hot, muggy, sweaty weather down here in the south. For those of you listening, Dan's up in Montana. I'm down in Georgia. We're about 2,000 miles apart. Just right at about 2,000, maybe just a little over. I used to live in Montana, and been working with Dan, so to speak, in ways for a while. I've got to meet Dan many years ago, probably about 6 years ago or so, something around there, in Montana, when people knew that I had an interest in water a long time ago, and they said, you're going to want to meet this fellow that's coming down to visit with us in the valley here. We were in Paradise Valley, Montana, just outside of Livingston, Montana at the time. And I'd heard from some friends about Dan. And I went to this meeting and listened to Dan speak. And what he had to say moved me a great deal. And I was dealing with some very serious personal issues at that time with my own health. Very desperate. Had an experience that just about took me out of this world permanently, and I was needing some help. And so I met Dan and learned about what he was doing, and he brought up some things about water that has ever since has changed my life and improved my life. And I've got to share this information with people since then. There's been a lot of things that's happened since that time. Research is going on. What's one of the things about it I would like to make a point of right now when we're looking at what a lot of is being done with donations in the world today, it's going towards research. There's still research to be done, but fortunately for us, folks like Dan Nelson has already done the research. Now it's trying to get the message out to us about the importance of what has been discovered and what is being done with water. So with that said, Dan, maybe if you would like to give us a little bit of history of your interest in physics and water.
Well, years ago I was teaching some astrophysics, but my real passion is quantum mechanics. So I've been working with theoretical physics for several years, and about 15 years ago I decided it was possible to build a special laser that actually harnesses and puts to work the antimatter particle version of a photon, which is the particle or energy package, depending on how you choose to look at it. We call it quantum stuff because nobody really knows what it is, but that's what carries the electromagnetic force, and it has an antimatter particle equivalent. So I figured out how to harness and put to work the antiphoton. One of the characteristics of this antimatter particle, it actually is not engaged with time-forward phenomenon. It's actually a time-reversed phenomenon, and it has the opposite charge. It's negatively, in terms of energy, it's negative energy is what it is. I found out subsequently after building the laser that out of curiosity, I went ahead and exposed my water to it, found out that I had the ability to engineer water with this type of energy. And in fact, I could engineer water far beyond what anybody had the ability to do. So that's where this whole thing got started, was with my work in quantum mechanics, theoretical physics. Originally, I didn't design the laser to manipulate water. That was just something that came out of a thought of mine one day. I wondered about water and the effects of the laser on that interesting compound. So that's when I got started. And so as Elder was saying in his introduction, I'm not going to belabor the point here. I'll be as brief as possible, but there's two different issues. So I'll start with the first one, and this involves a telephone call I was on this morning. It was a three-way call. The issue of water purity, okay? Water purity is one thing. I mean, what are they doing to our water? How is our water treated? How is it processed? What is added to the water? Why is it being added to the water? That's another question. Well, I was put on the phone with a gentleman that's been drinking my water for about 3 years and still has a problem that he's fought with for 26 years. He's got these horrible polyps in his nose, and it's terribly hard for him to sleep at night and breathe. And has no idea what's causing these polyps. So there's been attempts to identify, some type of pathogen, an infectious agent, with no success. Can't even say that he has any serious dental problems in terms of residual infections or the neurotoxins that would be left behind by infections or cavitations. That doesn't seem to be a factor in this. So I got to questioning the man. And I said, tell me, have you been dealing with any significant amount of muscle pain? Yeah, he says, as a matter of fact, I have. I said, I know what your problem is. I said, you have fluoride poisoning. I said, let me tell you a simple, interesting little story. There's a gentleman, he's gone on the internet with this. Do you all remember the anthrax scare after 9/11? Do you remember the antibiotic they put everybody on? It was called Cipro. Well, they put this gentleman on Cipro, and it wasn't long before he developed fibromyalgia. Well, he got to researching it, and virtually 100% of the people that were put on Cipro developed fibromyalgia. Every single one. Not one escaped fibromyalgia. And why is that? Because Cipro is full of fluoride. Fibromyalgia is nothing but fluoride poisoning. We believe there's a high probability that Gulf War syndrome is fluoride poisoning, and there may be a major fluoride poisoning component to this chronic fatigue syndrome that some people refer to as yuppie flu. So I was called by a nurse in Israel, north of Jerusalem. We had an interesting conversation, and she was excited to tell me that she's suffered with problems for years. In fact, she's in her 30s, and from the age of 16 on, they've had her on antidepressants. She's finally figured out what the problem is. She said, remember, she said, at one time I told you I was running all my drinking water through a Brita water filter, and you told me that the Brita would not take out fluoride. I said, that's right, it won't take out fluoride. She said, well, she said, I've had serious problems, including serious fibromyalgia. And she said, did you know they're fluoridating all the water supplies in Israel? I said, you know, that really surprises me. And she said, why is that? I said, you know who else fluoridated all the water supplies he could get his hands on? Adolf Hitler did. When a man, I believe his last name was Foster, was sent by the United States government over to Germany after the war to assume control over the Farber chemical plants. They had a vast number of Farber chemical plants throughout Germany. One of the first things the German chemist told him was that when they went in to occupy a country, the first thing they did was fluoridate the water supply. Because fluoride destroys your will to resist authority. It works on part of the brain. In fact, the most powerful active ingredient and man's most effective and powerful psychotic medications is fluorine. But fluoride is a poison. There's different isotopes of the element fluorine. But fluoride is an isotope of fluorine that's incredibly toxic. So the German scientists said they would fluoridate the water supply. Then they said something interesting. They very heavily fluoridated the water supply of prisoners of war. And I'll never forget this quote as long as I live. They said that it made them docile and dumb. Docile and dumb. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, imagine that.
Now, do you want to know why they are fluoridating the water supply in this country? I'll tell you another thing. The supposed studies that were done which made a connection between the lack of cavities in the teeth or dental caries and the presence of fluoride in the water, those studies never existed. In fact, there are some water supplies that naturally have a fairly decent amount of fluorine, but that's natural fluorine. It's a different isotope. Fluoride is an industrial waste byproduct, and it's highly toxic. So fluoride's a poison. Fluoride causes all kinds of problems, and this gentleman's polyps and all his other problems are being caused by fluoride. Now, he was putting his water through an ionizer, and that was not removing the fluoride. Eventually, he got a Roxtrax water filter, and that wasn't removing it either. A lot of the water filters will not remove the fluoride. Okay, so you must be aware of that. And if you want a good high level of health, you have to get away from water supplies that contain fluoride and quit using products that contain fluoride, because fluoride does not prevent dental caries. In fact, there's enough proof that's available now to substantiate everyone's suspicions that it actually promotes dental caries. So now, that's one issue, fluoride, okay? Here's another issue. Years ago, here's another concrete example. A young lady was in my house yesterday with her parents, and her daughter was with her, so she's in her 50s. And the daughter is in her late teen years, and this young lady was telling me that she drinks water all day. She can't get enough water. I said, I ran into that 25 years ago. I was having people come to me that were drinking up to 2 gallons and more than 2 gallons of water a day, and they were just as dehydrated as people that were drinking no water, quote-unquote water. They were trying to hydrate on things like coffee, tea, juice, pop, etc. So the people drinking water were just as dehydrated as the people not drinking water. Well, I thought that was curious. The doctors have been telling, since I was a child, I remember the rule of thumb was try to drink 8 glasses of water a day, and if you can, drink more. Drink 10, drink 12, drink 14. The more water, the better. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. What did the doctors have to base that on? Nothing. Virtually no data. No empirical evidence had been gathered by anyone to support the amount of water that a normal size or average size adult should drink. They simply knew that we were mostly water. Without water, there is no biology. All of biology depends on water. If you don't have water, you don't have biology. That's what they're looking for on Mars. If they can't find water, they're pretty sure they'll never find evidence for biology. And they had no empirical data or evidence to base that conclusion on. They were just telling us the more the merrier. Well, that's not true, because you can drink enough water that it'll tax your kidneys and really seriously wear on the kidneys. Most of the water you're drinking, my discovery later on was that the water cannot be absorbed through the cell membrane wall. The water particle's too big. I'll give you a real quick physics lesson here. I'm not going to get into it to a great amount of depth. But my work has shown me that, and I saw this recently on a show on the Discovery Channel. It was a little program about water, and they said the water molecule is magnetic. It is. It's like a little tiny magnet. It has what we call in physics a permanent dipole moment. So the oxygen side is holding all the electron cards. And on the other side, you have 2 hydrogen protons hanging off there. And the angle between one hydrogen proton, the oxygen atom, and the other hydrogen proton is normally, in its ground state, it would be 104.5 degrees. But because the water molecules don't stay alone. They have this irresistible tendency to become involved with one another because of their permanent dipole moment status, that is their magnetic charge. So they come together and they form 3-dimensional structures called polyhedra. Now there's a lot of literature out there, and they're saying that water forms interesting chains, and it'll form rings like hexagonal rings, and in reality that's not true, and that adjacent water molecules share hydrogen bonds. Well, that's not true. The oxygen is already bonding with 2 hydrogen, and it's not going to share a hydrogen bond with an adjacent water molecule. What they're going to do is they're going to be attracted by the electric force field. of the entire molecular unit, and they're going to come together and they're going to form three-dimensional symmetrical structures that we call polyhedra. Now, water is made up of all these polyhedra, so think of each polyhedra as a crystal, okay? What does that mean? Well, in its liquid phase, that means water is essentially a crystal. That's why water feels so much different when you put your hand in some water and move it around in the water. Now take your hand out and move it through the air in front of you. Why does water feel so much different than the mixture of gases in the atmosphere? It's because you're actually moving your hand through a liquid crystal. It's actually a crystal. That's why it is a liquid. Now, these polyhedra are not allowed to wander too far apart because of appropriate atomic molecular forces. So they're like a bunch of ball bearings that stay close to one another, and yet they roll around one another very easily. That's why water has the amazing attributes and characteristics and properties. That's why it's so different from the mixture of atmospheric gases. So essentially, water has two phases. It's either a liquid or water will be a solid if it totally freezes into a crystalline matrix. So even when water vaporizes, it's going into the atmosphere as little tiny blobs or particles made up of still smaller particles that we call the polyhedra. So it still goes into the atmosphere as a liquid, little tiny entities of liquid is what it is, and it'll be held, as it were, in suspension in the atmosphere. So now it was my discovery that when water is thermodynamically degraded, that is, it's been de-energized, the bonding angle is at a minimum between the two hydrogen and the oxygen. When water is energized, that bonding angle increases. In other words, the two hydrogen protons, the little electrostatic field around them that's positively charged, gets stronger and they repel one another and they push apart, and it increases the bonding angle. Well, as soon as the bonding angle is increased, this happens almost instantaneously. All of the water particles come apart and they reassemble as smaller polyhedra with a different geometry. So now what I've been able to do with my laser, getting back to this time-reversed device that's the equivalent of a laser sending the particle wave backwards in time, is this energy, when you harness the antiphoton, ignores the electron shell because of the type of energy it is. The antiphoton doesn't interact with the electron like the normal photon. It goes through that electron shell and interacts with the proton nucleus. And it charges the proton, because a proton will charge like a little capacitor, increases that electrostatic field, they push apart, changes the bonding angle, they immediately disassemble and reassemble with a different geometry, and they have to come down in size. So the maximum bonding angle allowable is about 122 degrees. Beyond that, you destabilize the whole water molecule. So now what we've got is we've got very, very small water particles. So my finding was that 95 to 98% of the water particles you've been drinking cannot go across the membrane wall and get inside of the cell. So I have simply stated I've been able to engineer water so that virtually all of the particles are much, much smaller, and they will all go through the aquaporin channel on the membrane wall of the cell and hydrate the cell inside. That's where we need to get water, is inside the cell. And people working with the newer version of the QXCI machine, a device called the SKIO, they're finding that if people are not drinking my water, if they're trying to hydrate on any other water, it doesn't matter what it is, they will check somewhere between 40 and 50% intracellular hydration, that is hydration inside the cells. That's one thing that the new version of the QXCI called the SKIO machine does very well, is measure intracellular hydration. And they're finding the people who are drinking my water are measuring in the high 80s and 90s and some very close to 100% intracellular hydration. That's the difference. a test was conducted over a year ago by a professor of microbiology. He's a PhD in microB. And under a microscope, adding different waters to very thirsty cells, they set off a timer, and they note how much time it takes for the cell to rehydrate. And with normal waters, no matter how they're purified or cleaned up, the professor told me in a standard absorption test of this nature, it'll take hours to show any significant signs of hydration. My water went through, he said, and amazingly was well on its way to hydrating within 30 seconds. That's the difference. I have water molecules in the sub-nanometer range. And the water molecules you're trying to hydrate on when you drink any other water are much larger than a nanometer. To get anything through the receptor site on the membrane wall of a cell called the aquaporin channel, the particle can't, it has to be right around a nanometer in size, which is 1/1000th of a meter. All of my particles are down less than half a nanometer. They're in the 4 angstrom range. So that's the difference. We achieved an extremely hydrating water. And when it's sold as a concentrate because there's so much energy in this water that you can add 2 ounces of it to a gallon, and it sets off, as it were, like a little thermodynamic chain reaction. These particles are spinning their energy off to adjacent particles, and it sets off this chain reaction, and pretty soon, within 10 minutes, all of the particles of water are now in what I call a very high atomic spin state. And the particle size is really small. The whole system becomes extremely stable. That is, it'll stay in this high spin state, provided that you store it in an appropriately hard container, and I highly recommend glass over plastic, and also provided that you don't expose it to microwave. I don't know of anything that'll destroy the properties of this water faster than microwave.
The microwave will pretty much destroy properties in anything healthy, won't it?
It will. Yeah, it will. That's because, for the most part, the nutrient value in foods is actually in the energy field around the food, and microwave destroys that energy field. In fact, there's any number of ways man processes foods and ruins them by destroying the integrity of the energy field around the food. And then it has no nutritional value. So if you ask a biochemist, we all think that the cells are taking minerals inside as particles, and they'll tell you, no, that's not true. That's not what we're taught in biochemistry. Cell has no provision for fixing a mineral on the inside of the cell or utilizing it or attaching it to anything. The cell just wants to be exposed to the energy of the mineral, that is, its frequency. So that being the case, we figured out how to encode. That's another thing you can do with this water. Head and shoulders above any other water. It will hold information. It will hold vast amounts of information. I believe Microsoft is onto this. They realize that quite possibly the ultimate information storage system would be a drop of water. They just don't know how to retrieve the information out of that drop of water.
I think, Dan, when somebody long time ago their spirit moved across the face of the waters.
Yeah,
and knew all about what was going on with what water would do. You could probably tell us a few things about. I keep the thought on the Microsoft and storing information in water, but if you might touch on that, I think you might be able to shed a little light on that.
Well, I was involved with a project, and I know this is going to be hard for some people listening to this to believe, but it's absolutely true. We were making gold nuggets out of nothing but frequency in water. And the reason we were doing that was because we were simply duplicating what happens in the natural world and has been happening from the beginning of time. If you put the appropriate frequencies in water, material mass will come out of nowhere. It'll appear from the energy you put in the water. But the frequencies all have to be the frequencies of premetallic unstable isotopes. And for the most part, these isotopes are found easily as energies in water. They will appear in crustal rocks, but as a rule, they're not the ones you'll find on the surface. However, they do surface in various places. They're very hard to find. But you can take unstable isotopes. For instance, if you find a quartz vein or a quartz crystal, that's a form of silica. But when a metal ore deposit is formed, say a quartz vein underground, or a nugget formed in the gravels or on the bedrock, one of the energies is the energy of silica-10. But silica-10 is not the same isotope as the silica you're holding in your hand when you're holding a quartz crystal. It's different. That's the end state or the dead state of silica. Silica-10 is a very energetic isotope. The frequency has a very high amplitude of wave, and water will take on that energy if the amplitude of wave is high enough. But when things settle down into a stable state, the amplitude of wave is very low. Water won't pick up that information. So what water is inclined to pick up as it passes through mineral formations underground is the energies of unstable isotopes, premetallic isotopes of things. So that's how we were making gold nuggets. They weren't pure. They contained platinum and palladium along with gold, but they for the most part every placer deposit that we ever visited, there was no apparent source for the gold. And the tip-off was in north of the gold country in California, way out in those plains north of Sacramento, way up there. This was 20 miles from the mountains. There's two streams that meander around, along, and they come together. And below the confluence of these two streams, you can go in every year with a suction dredge and take numerous small gold nuggets out of that drainage. And then you have to let it basically recharge for a year. Well, the assumption has always been that the gold is, like washing down. It's being broken out of vein deposits, and it's washing down by, the course of water. Well, there's not enough water flow here to move a gold nugget. Trust me, there isn't enough water flow here to move anything except incredibly small particles in suspension in the water. So then it became apparent that each of those streams was carrying different frequencies, and when they came together, the frequency complement was completed, and it could form gold nuggets. So basically, metal is being grown in water from pure energy. And then we figured out, somebody or something didn't invent the wheel. A lot of the isotopes that we use nutritionally are the same ones the natural world would use to make a gold nugget. Just as an example, out of almost 20 isotopes of iron, most of them are toxic. And I noticed that a lot of companies that are selling multiple vitamin mineral supplements are actually taking the iron out because people are reacting negatively to the iron in the supplements. That's because their iron is basically metallic, and all metals are toxins to the human body, and iron can be extremely toxic. So your body, out of almost 20 isotopes, can only utilize one isotope of iron, and that's a premetallic unstable isotope. It's isotope 57. It's the same energy. It's one of the energies needed to make a gold nugget. You can't make a gold nugget without the energy of iron 57 in the water. So we found out how to put these energies in the water and deliver all the nutritional minerals your body needs as the mathematical analog of the minerals in the water. But then, of course, the body needs minerals in a solid state, and what it's using those minerals for is the electrical charge or valence. Ideally, they need a valence of -2, meaning they're in a slight alkaline state. So the body has a need for electrolytes. Hopefully you'll get those out of your food. Sometimes you don't get an adequate amount out of your foods. And I know of some mineral supplements that are designed to be electrolytic replacements, and they have a really nice broad complement of minerals, And they all have the correct valence charge of -2. Very, very good supplements. But for the most part, the water I designed was designed to supply the cells with the minerals that are needed nutritionally so that the cell can be exposed to their frequency rate and benefit from that. So that was basically what happened in terms of the development of a water that would actually hydrate people. So I would go back and take people that were trying to drink 2 gallons and more of water a day, and I certainly couldn't do it. If I got about 4 to 5 8-ounce glasses of water in me a day, I was doing good, and I spent entirely too much time in the bathroom. I had no idea how a human being could drink 2 gallons of water a day and not spend all their time in the bathroom. But I knew people that were, and then I discovered that when those people got on my water, it took about 2 to 3 months to actually hydrate. And then they had no desire to drink all that water. They were content to drink 16 to 24 ounces of this water a day, and they were good to go. They were showing all the signs of hydration. I've got an older sister in Alabama who's 67, going on 68 years of age, and she said if she doesn't drink my water, she can immediately see the difference in her skin. So that's one of the places where you see hydration is the skin. And one of the first things that'll dehydrate in your body, believe it or not, is your bloodstream. If you have your blood analyzed under a dark field microscope, a lot of the damage you see in the bloodstream comes from simple old dehydration. Edema, that's all dehydration. If you have edema, you're definitely dehydrated. Your body's trying to hold on to all the fluid it can. It's absolutely desperate for fluid. So if you've got edema, you're very, very dehydrated, probably in some cases below 20% intracellular hydration. Now that's critical. That's critical dehydration. So anyway, over the years, I've worked with literally thousands of people, and getting them hydrated has made a huge difference in the way they feel and perform. And that's all I'll say about that. And they all praise the water, love it, and contacted Elder about 5.5 to 6 years ago. He had some interesting problems, and one was, I'll never forget this, Elder had a pH of 4.4. I couldn't believe it. And within, I think it was 4 or 5 weeks being on this water, we rechecked him, and Elder's pH was up almost to 7. It was right around 6.8 or 6.9. So it made a huge difference in Elder's health and the way he felt. According to him, that's what he told me.
Indeed, it did, Dan. Those of you may not know, I've been, before I met Dan, I was dealing with some severe heart issues, and it's still a challenge to this day, but it was quite a challenge at that time. I previously had left my body. There's different names for that they have out there for that, but it was that serious. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't talk. If I said a sentence, it was, it took every bit of the energy that I had. And after drinking this water, it changed so many things. I could feel the energy. I could feel the energy off of the jug, but I'm very sensitive in certain ways. Not like Dan. Dan he's incredibly sensitive to subtle energy fields. But I have a certain degree of sensitivity, and I could actually feel the energy. When I went to the meeting in Montana, in Paradise Valley that year, there was a jug sitting there on the counter, and I just put my hand over it, and I thought, wow, this is incredible. I took some home. I took a couple of big jugs home with me and drank just about every bit of it over the next course of a few days. Actually, I overdid it, but I have a tendency to try to push things to see what my envelope is right away. And I felt incredible energy from it. I felt hydrated. My heart felt better. I felt like my blood flow was going through my heart instead of pumping like 50-weight motor oil. It felt like that the pumping mechanism was doing a whole lot better. I firmly believe, Dan, that it saved my life. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that water. And I think maybe a friend of yours that worked with you early on with your water project was dealing with some heart issues too, that it helped him quite a bit.
Oh yeah. Actually, it saved his life. He had had 2 or 3 heart attacks, and he ended up with 4 stents in his heart, and started feeling really lousy again. And the doctor was talking to him about either more stents or bypass surgery. And the gentleman said, he said, the problem is the accumulation of plaque in the arteries, and you're not preventing that. He said, this is a Band-Aid approach. You're coming along after the fact and putting a little sleeve in the artery, or taking out entirely and replacing it with a section of artery from somewhere in usually it's down in your leg where they get it. And the doctor said, yeah, that's right. We don't know how to prevent the accumulation of plaque. So he was working with metallurgy, and he had a friend who was a nuclear engineer, and they got to working on this, and they decided if they put the energy of an isotope of the element indium in water, that it would neutralize the charge of the minerals that were involved with the plaque. And it's not the cholesterol. People are all under the impression that the plaque is all cholesterol. No. It's cholesterol with a bunch of minerals mixed in, and the minerals are the problem, because it's the electrical charge or valence of the minerals that actually makes it become quite hard and form into a plaque. Normally, cholesterol by itself wouldn't become a plaque. It's the minerals involved with the cholesterol that are plaquing, and it's the electrical charge of those minerals. So if you change the valence or charge of that plaque, it will simply very slowly reverse itself. It'll very, very safely go back into solution and come off the artery walls. So they find out just by taking isotope 125 of indium and putting it in water, that is the energy, nothing but the frequency, not the mineral itself, but the frequency only. Within 4 weeks, it cleaned all the plaque out of his arteries, and he's not had a problem with that since. So now we've subsequently discovered the water does a really good job of not only removing plaque, but also removing heavy metals. Obviously, it's incredibly good at detox, because the first priority of the cells when they hydrate, they get hydrated on the inside, is to purge. Man, that's why you start on a real low dosage of this water. You drink maybe, I started a gal last night, the one I was telling you about, that was in her 50s and was drinking so much water a day. She could only tolerate, believe it or not, of the mixture now. You start with a concentrate and you put 2 ounces in a gallon of water. So then you take that gallon mixture, and that's what you drink. She could only tolerate 2 ounces of that twice a day for 2 weeks. And after that 2-week period, she goes up to 4 ounces of the mixture twice a day. So you just very gradually ramp up, because you'd be surprised how many million cells will be hydrated by 2 ounces of water. And if you've got all those cells purging, it doesn't take much to overcome the filtering systems of the body and plug them up. You can plug them up very easily. If the toxins can't get out of the body and they're just being recirculated, they make you very sick. I believe that's known as a Hertzheimer effect, and there's no reason to put yourself through that. So I have people ramp up very slowly on the water, and in about 2, 3, and sometimes it takes 4 months or more, they're hydrated. They've got their hydration way up in the high 80s or low 90s, and interesting things are happening for them. But the key here is water. We're a water-based biological system. All biological systems are water-based. The cytoplasm environment inside of a cell is nothing but water. And the cells, like everything else, it needs to clean itself, and it needs to get fresh water in so it can push toxins out, and to get them out, they've got to go out in suspension in water. Oh, a cell's a smart device. It can't dehydrate itself to death. Just to give you an example, I had a gentleman ask me once, he said, have you ever seen anybody who died from anthrax? And I said, no, I've never had the privilege. He said, well, I have. And he said, they look like a piece of beef jerky. He said, anthrax kills the host by dehydrating the cells. A lot of the microorganisms dehydrate the cells of the host. That's what kills you. So hydration's crucial. That's why the doctors are always telling you when you're sick, you got a virus, the flu, drink plenty of fluids. Why? Because the virus is dehydrating the cells. So, we're never told these things. Somebody just doesn't look at us and make these plain, simple, logical statements and tell you what's going on. And so we got to go out and dig for the information because nobody seems to be interested in giving us the simple, vital information we need for our own benefit, for our health and wellness.
Well, it would seem to imply that there's an interest otherwise.
There's an interest otherwise, yes. I mean, that's the only logical conclusion you could draw from this. I mean, either that or we're stupid and they're smart, or we're all smart, but we're just smart in different ways. You can be smart in an evil way, or, you can be smart like Mother Teresa. Intelligent, and yet your heart is in the right place. You actually want to help people. You can be smart, and you can be a pariah. You can be preying on your fellow man all the time, getting what you can off him. In other words, it's too easy to turn your fellow man into a cash crop, especially when you control as much power and influence as certain entities do out there. So you have to do your own thinking. I encourage you to do your own thinking. Don't turn it over to somebody else whose interest might be just making as much money off you as they can. Do your own thinking. Sit down, think this information over. I haven't been doing this for a couple days. I've been doing it for the water thing for over 6 years. Thousands of people are on it. They just love it. They must love it for a reason. I remember when I read Dr. Daryl Stoddard's book called Pain Free for Life. He's like me. He says there's a controversy over whether or not you should drink distilled water. Well, here's the bottom line. If water cannot pass an electrical charge, your body has no use for that water. It cannot utilize it. Daryl Stoddard says the same thing in his book. I've talked to him in person. He's a wonderful gentleman, pretty much in retirement now. My research validates that if water cannot pass an electrical charge, then it cannot be used by the human body. So there has to be some level of total dissolved solids in the water, TDS. And these solids in suspension, some of them have to be in an ionized state in order for the water to conduct an electrical current. So I've been able to determine that there's a threshold current level. If your water can't pass at least 12 millisiemens of current, it's not going to do you a bit of good. Don't take it into your body. If you want it to pass just a little bit more current, put a little pinch of salt in it. Isn't that simple? Salt's very good at helping water conduct electrical current.
Absolutely, Dan. That's a good point. A little bit of salt for folks. For most folks, I would say, some people have to watch their salt. Just a little bit affects them. They're dealing with different things like blood pressure and all. But I found that just a little bit of salt is important to always have a little bit with your water.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
It increases, there's a lot of things going on with the interaction between the energy and the salt and the water.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, there was an astronomer being interviewed last night, and the Russians have put some gerbils into space. And why gerbils? We've had humans in space for months at a time. Didn't we learn everything we needed to learn about the effects of zero gravity and the space environment on biology from the astronauts? Well, it had something to do with the ability of the gerbils to hold fluid for a long time. They didn't have to drink water. They could go for a long, long time without drinking. You and I, if you go for about a week without drinking water, you'll die. It'll kill you. But not a gerbil. So then they can study the effects of, say, the transfer of salts to the membrane walls and certain things. And there was another advantage because you can bring a gerbil back to the ground and perform an autopsy on him quick. You don't do that with an astronaut. So that's why the Russians were, it seemed like they were taking a step backwards by putting gerbils into orbit. No, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. We want to know more about the effects of the space environment and zero gravity on biology. So the gerbil was a good candidate because of his ability to hold fluids for a long period of time. See what happens to the transfer of salts across the membrane wall under those conditions. So anyway, we've got a water, and then Elder is marketing a product called Bionade. And you want to talk just a little bit about that, Elder, and then I'll add to what you say about your Bionade.
Sure, Dan. I've been dealing with some folks for probably going on 3 years now. There's a product that was developed about 20 years ago. Actually, it was a molecule. It was a very, very small molecule. It's so small it took a very special scope to see it. It looks sort of like a raspberry. What they have done with the process is they take the water that has a little silver with it, and the hydrogen, a significant amount of the hydrogen is removed from the water molecule. What this causes is an attraction, a magnetic attraction, a bonding, a covalent bonding, actually, between the oxygen atoms and the silver ion. Are you still there, Dan?
Yep, still
okay.
here.
I heard a hang-up. So anyway, so you have a connection there that's permanent and a bonding. And what happens, as Dan was talking about earlier, we're talking about a lot of it has to do with energies and the waves, the waveforms and the energies, the etheric energies, the morphic energy field that's being emanated from things. That's what affects other things. And for example, like silver does into microorganisms that are very, very unhealthy. They're gram-negative, anaerobic microorganisms that causes problems in the body. It can be funguses, blastomycostic funguses, or spores, or viruses, various different things like that, that simply cannot live in the environment near the valence energy of silver. Many of you probably heard of colloidal silvers and products out on the market out there, and they can be very dangerous because, as Dan mentioned earlier, these heavy metals are not really meant for the body except in very, very special isotope forms, or it's such a very, very low quantity that you get the energy, the valence, so that the body does some things or utilizes in such a way. In this case, silver is utilized in such a way that it affects these organisms that cause dis-ease or illnesses. And we've got all kinds of names for them today, but you have to be licensed to talk about these licensed names, so we won't talk about those, but I can just state that everything from A to Z is affected when you're dealing with water, as Dan's talking about. But addressing and getting the mineral and the energies and the hydration going, this is addressed by Dan's and somewhat by this other, because it is such a small particle, it doesn't even qualify as a colloid because it's below 0.004 microns. So that is very, very tiny, this molecule. It's not even detected on assays. If you were to do an assay, and laboratories have done assays on these products, and it shows that it's under 3 parts per million, actually 2.83 parts per million. So as I was going to say, this product, or actually this molecule, has been out and done research done on by World Health Organization, UCLA Virology Laboratories, where it killed HIV. Genesis West, Providence has done research on it. They've found, and doctors have found, that a lot of these licensed words were affected significantly by this product, or this particular, I should say particle, because it was small-sized, and because the energy, the valence energy, is carried on through all of the oxygen atoms. In other words, it's amplified. It's exponentially amplified over the oxygen. Because normally a silver ion has about 15 electrons, and it's done. It can only cancel out or suffocate the chemical lung of the microorganisms that are unhealthy for your body, only 15 at a time, and then it's done. So what people were doing were using high parts per million, 200, 300, 400, 5,000 parts per million, and they were effectively getting rid of these microorganisms in their body, but they were causing a toxic effect on the body. Their eyes were turning gray, their skin was turning gray. So it was a detrimental effect for the body, which was not good. So the good part about this particle was that it was so small and so insignificant as far as the size and effect on the body. It easily passed through the body without causing any damage whatsoever as far as this argyria are concerned with too much of the silver in there. But what it would do, it would act like extremely high parts per million of silver. For example, if you used to take one particle of your basic colloid silver and you put it in a petri dish with 1 million bacteria, it would kill 15, and it's done. That's all it can do because the electron and the valence energy is done. One particle of this special molecule will kill, in the same another petri dish with 1 million anaerobic gram-positive bacteria, gram-negative, gram-negative, it will kill all 1 million bacteria and sterilize the dish. So you had all of the good aspects without destroying all of the good bacteria that needs to be in the body going on with this. So they were using it and were testing people in other countries with this molecule, and it was shown that it was dealing with these viruses like HIV and significantly addressing those issues, even the people that were having children. And as you all know, as we were discussing earlier, the nature of energies and waves and water, when we think of children being born in a mother's womb, there's energies developed. It's a part of a divine plan of our Creator that's involved in this process in a mother's womb, in that cradle of what? Water. There's minerals being developed that's creating this little child in the mother's womb, and it's not even in her diet. So these elements are transmutating and changing from different elements to other elements that's needed in the medium of water. So as this was affecting putting these energies in, the HIV wasn't being passed on in the mother's system to the children, and they were being born HIV-free. So as a new development that Dan has taken a part of his technology, and we're looking into discussions on taking this even further with a complete and total 100% combination of the two technologies together in the near future, hopefully. We're looking into that, but we've taken part of that where Dan has used his laser and has taken the rest of the water molecules in this product, in the Bionade, and reduced them to sub-nanoparticles as well, including the naturally occurring silver that's occurring from the mineral and in the process of making this. Otherwise, if they were to assay it, we were saying this is a product that has silver in it, and they assayed it with just the particle itself in there, it wouldn't show up. So there's a little bit of naturally occurring. Now, what is interesting is that when we took this product and tested it again at the laboratory, it went from 2.83 parts per million before Dan used his technology on it, down to 1.14 parts per million. If you get your calculator out, you can see that's at least over a 60% decrease in the presence of silver, which means it was so small that it was completely undetectable by the lab's assay. So when we're looking at dealing with the Commonwealth and sharing with each other, and we're all donating to do some things to help one another as we come together in the Commonwealth to share with each other, one of the most important things we're trying to bring to your attention today is that a lot of our problems is our illness is due to dehydration and the need for water, and because that there's a lot of things being put in the water like fluoride. And then this new creature called chloramine, which is a combination of chlorine and ammonia. And the bonding between the chlorine and the ammonia is so tight, it's almost covalent. It's hard to take your basic water filtering systems out there that we're trying to get these chemicals out so that we can drink some clean water and put it into our bodies that we're getting out of our tap. They've made this new creature, this chloramine, and they're putting it into the water because most of our filtering devices that we've utilized in our homes to have some drinking water that's decent and healthy for our family, they've gone one step further to try to prevent us from getting something out, and that's why they've come up with this chloramine. And that's what Dr. Wayne Parker has been talking about for quite some time. As a matter of fact, they've come after him, Dan. They've spent millions of dollars coming after Dr. Parker because what he has said about chloramine. They want to put this into the watering systems. They're even threatening municipalities with thousands and thousands of dollars in fines if they don't put this into the water systems.
Okay,
and so when
if something is beneficial, that doesn't it seem to you it's irrational to attack somebody who in turn is trying to maybe point out some negative aspect of it?
Exactly.
The facts should speak for themselves. You should never have to demonize somebody or attack them. If what you're doing, the science is sound, the research is sound, the data shows that, this is nothing but beneficial, it should be in the water supplies. Oh, no. If somebody finds a downside to it and they, shed some light on that, the next thing you know is along comes the spin machine and they demonize these people, rip them apart, and all they're trying to do is, point something out that people they need to know about. Yeah.
Indeed, Dan, and they exhausted quite a lot of money to discredit Dr. Parker and his observations and findings, and they lost. He significantly, without a doubt, proved that this is a very, very toxic substance, and he had a lot of other doctors and other people that come to his aid with information and research that clearly pointed out that this stuff that they're wanting to put and have already put in many water systems is causing a lot of problems for the public, and he had pointed out that 1 out of 9 people in America are suffering from kidney failure. A lot of people don't even know that they're suffering from kidney failure until it's almost too late, and they're at one of the many growing, expanding dialysis centers somewhere in the United States. But he said one of the ways of testing and finding out that when you get blood tests done, there is a ratio of how fluids will move through the kidney. When you get the creatinine tested, there's a test, glutamine, or I forget what it is, but it's a GFR, I believe it's a test that you can ask for and ask some data on it from them, and they will tell you what your flow rate, in other words, how well your kidneys are processing the fluids in it. And what has come out from the research that they've been collecting, and Dr. Parker has found out, is that indeed 1 out of 9 people in the United States have kidney failure. The majority don't even know it. So, in saying this, we're pointing out the importance, and why we're putting a priority. That's why this broadcast, this is our 3rd broadcast with Free Waves Radio on freewaves.tv, is our first broadcast was the introduction of Free Waves and Water mission statement and what we're trying to accomplish. Our 2nd broadcast was dealing with how we were preparing to expand, and we're already have things set in place for growth and abundance for everyone that's participating with us in this outreach mission and for the Commonwealth and to help each other. The most important thing, as I've been asked questions by people and we've already mentioned, we want to provide funding towards research. Well, I thought, since there's already a lot of research done, and Dan Nelson being one of the fine pioneers in this field of water that's brought forward, has already expended large sums of money and time and effort to do research and find out what we can do. So this is being coupled with this other great, outstanding technology that's producing this very, very fine a silver molecule that's so tiny it takes, like I said, a very special microscope to even see it. But it's a very, very powerful one, even though it's safe for the body. To take it even further, so it is going to be able to do more for the body in dealing with these microorganisms that causes you to look like beef jerky, or your cells to look like a beef jerky. So we're combining these things and want to make these available freely to those that are needy through our outreach mission at no charge to them. Is one of the things that we want to accomplish, is one of our goals. And also make it available for those that can afford to go ahead and purchase it at wholesale or a substantial discount even below that. For those that want, of the members that are participating in the outreach mission, to provide it for you. So this is a very informational, educational broadcast today that we want to share with you so that you know what we're doing with the outreach mission money. And it's something that's going to affect everyone's life. Now, when we get to considering another aspect of this, where we're looking at the dollar falling, I keep hearing reports more and more that the dollar's being inflated more and more, and the dollar's falling. We're in a serious financial state in our country. That this very well product may be even be a currency for us to barter with. And you know, silver coins have been used for a very, very long time, and that's of good substance for a good reason, because no germs would be carried on silver coin. Unfortunately, the new shekel that's being has been made available in Judea now is copper nickel. It's not even silver. But we want to address this economy issue. This would be something also that, as we're investing our money into providing this product for the needy because of its health benefits, and particularly considering the possibilities of plague or pandemics, whether fabricated or not, there's still the jury's still out on that. There's still a lot of weaponized stuff going on, and that's what has come out significantly. And with the advent of the internet, we've learned more about mankind has been tinkering a lot with things that ought not be tinkered with, and developing weaponized viruses and that sort of thing. We want to be able to be prepared for it, but as we're investing our precious donation and our time with the Commonwealth and with our donations, we want to invest in something that's going to have value to it. And the thing about the Bionate, it has an unlimited shelf life. It doesn't matter how long it sits there. This water is not going to go bad because of bacteria or fungus, simply because it can't live in the presence of it. So we have a value there in investing. Almost, it's better than investing in silver coin. It's something that you can utilize for your health. And so as far as putting our donations into something in the Commonwealth that's going to be able to be passed around and given out freely and shared with the members of the Commonwealth as it grows, we're putting this into something that has value in more ways than one. And I'm very grateful that Dan has stepped up to the plate and offered to use his technology to enhance this. And as we were talking last night, maybe share a little bit, help me out if I make any errors in this, because I'm still learning, that when this particular product, now it's a concentrate too. In other words, you can mix 2 ounces. After what Dan has done to it, you can just mix 2 ounces of this to a gallon. And if I'm understanding Dan correctly, when he tested it last night, that probably could get by with just a very little bit at a time. Maybe just a glass a day is the most that you would ever need, because we want to make sure as you're starting out that you don't overdo it. Right, Dan?
Yeah, probably 4 to 8 ounces a day would be plenty.
Okay, so
what happened when I get this product, which is made by some individuals in Colorado, I'm not part of that process.
Right.
When I get this product from Elder, if you check water will have a predominant electron spin orientation, so the water will be, and you can do this, we can have a little fun with this. This is kind of a simple Physics 101 lesson here, okay? Just take your right hand. It has to be your right hand, not your left, but your right hand. Put your thumb up and notice the direction your fingers are curling. Look down on your thumb, and your fingers are basically going counterclockwise. They're going to the left, okay? Well, in physics, we refer to the electron as either being spin up, okay? The particle is spin up. Flip your hand over so your thumb is going down. Now look at the direction your fingers are curling. They're going right hand or clockwise. So the particles either spin up or spin down, okay? Everything that's spin up, which is this left-hand orientation, is toxic to you. That's where all your allergens are, and all your toxins and poisons are all powerful spin up or left-hand orientation. And the good things are spin down. They're in a right-hand orientation. Water will either be spin up, spin down, or it'll be neutral spin. The only water you can drink, and this is about 3-4 years ago, Hulda Clark did a Rife conference, and she talked a lot about the charge of water. She realized water had a charge. It was either negative, which is spin down, right hand, or it was neutral, or it was positive, which is spin up, left hand. And the only water you can drink is water that's spin down, which is right hand spin, okay? That's also referred to as negative spin. Well, when this product comes to me, it's in a neutral spin condition. So I run it under the laser, and we put it into a powerful negative spin or spin down configuration. Now it's right hand energy. And what it does is it tends to, according to my testing, it increases the potential of the silver to do its job by a factor of about 10. It improves it by a factor of about 10. So we have a way of improving this product. It comes from Elder to me and goes back to Elder. So there's some extra expense involved here, shipping both ways. There's quite a bit of weight involved, and Elder doesn't even factor that extra cost into anything. That's just something he wants to do to make it the best product possible. So we're taking a good thing, making it even better with my technology.
Thank you, Dan. Hopefully in the future that we will be able to combine it, even if we can work together with the folks there in Colorado. We can combine it through with the as you were talking about last night.
Well, with my water as the base. Right,
using the substrate.
Yep.
Take the substrate and then put that through the reactor to create the end product. If not, I was thinking that maybe if there's some way of taking and providing it to you, and you create a substrate with it, and then it would be mixed somewhere else and put together. One of the other things that I thought to accomplish with this, Dan, we know that since there's been a lot of discussion about bottled water, they're trying to do everything to force even bottled water to have fluorine, or fluoride, I should say, to have fluoride in it, maybe even this chlorine or chloramine in it. Because a lot of this water that's bottled out here, even though it might have this pristine-looking scene on the label, it really should be a photograph of your local water sewage treatment plant. Instead of a beautiful, pristine scene out in the mountains with, a waterfall. So I could see where, something is bad wrong, and you can't expect people to have that. But the problem is that they shouldn't be bottling that kind of water anyway. And so what I'm looking at, as far as a longer shelf life is concerned, is that when this is being stored, either in glass or temporarily in the packaging that it's coming in, until such time we can do something actually producing a product in a glass bottle, which would be better. But at this point, it's not economically feasible. But once you get it, you want to get it into some glass. But one of the things I wanted to accomplish, Dan, with combining these two things is that there would never be any question, not that there is now, but should anybody, want to question what water is being, treated and how its shelf life is, because requiring shelf life dates to be putting on bottled water. The thing about this, if it was they were literally combined totally 100%, is that the addition of this bionic molecule would prevent any concerns of the water that you've been working with for years as being having a shelf life to it. I don't know if you've done any shelf life studies, but this would definitely, having the combination together would reduce any concerns to zero. As Dan was telling me last night, that when the lasered Bionade is combined with the water, his time back water, time reverse, this gets to the spin and issue. It deals with all the different things, with entropy, with gravity. All of these things are affected with the process of the laser that Dan's using. As a matter of fact, he's even had a comment from a local there that was doing some research, and they happened to find you, right, Dan?
Yeah.
Because the laser was putting off a credible energy field that was actually affecting the gravity sink in the area, if I'm correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Should I elaborate on that, or is that something we want to just leave with that?
Yeah, maybe we'll believe that at that.
Okay.
All I'll say is that I can take a bottle of water and we can detect an energy field that finally falls off, and it's non-detectable at a distance of 990 feet from the bottle of water. That's how much energy I've succeeded in putting in water.
And that's definitely going to be affecting gravity, and it's going to be affecting instrumentation that's very sensitive.
You're with energy, you're actually structuring, space-time is what you're doing. You're structuring the gravity field. So
as we were discussing last night, Dan, that when it's combined, for those of you that are interested in both of these things, and I would be interested in both of them.
Yeah.
I recommend both of them, actually, because one will not replace the other. They're just too dynamically unique until such time that these things can be combined.
That's right, yeah.
They're two different things, but when they are combined, in other words, when you take and make you a gallon of the mix, in other words, 2 ounces of the Bionade with a gallon of your best drinking water, then you add that with a mix that takes 2 ounces of Dan's water. It goes into a gallon because it's a concentrate too, and it affects the energies. It creates fractal pattern energies that bring these waves, fractal waves, and changes. Actually affects the other water molecules in it within minutes, and the longer it sits, the more effect that it has. That we need to consider the dosage on that too, don't we, Dan? As far as not a dosage, but how much we'd want to drink to get the effects of it would be even reduced some more, wouldn't it, Dan?
Yeah, it would. Yeah, it reduces the amount of water you need to take in to get the same effect. So
right.
in other words, we're imparting horsepower to everything. Is what we're doing. We're amping it all up, and you're getting. It's like an engine that's more fuel efficient. You get the more energy and more mileage from the same amount of fuel.
Right. So when the mix of the Bionade is added with the water, it takes actually a lot less of would it be the concentrate mixed with the water straight in, Dan? Or
yeah.
In other words, you wouldn't take the mix of the Bionade and combine it with the mix of the time back water, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you instead of taking 2 ounces for possibly, it's going to be more like maybe a half ounce.
Something like that, yeah.
Maybe not more than an ounce, you'd think.
Yeah, something like that, about an ounce.
Okay, with the mix of the water. So that's just another option that's available. But one of the things, like I say, folks, what we're trying to do is express to you that those who have a bit of a scientific mind and for the layman out there that doesn't understand any of the physics about it, the bottom line is we're trying to impart to you the value of water. and especially if it's of this kind of water, because you can go out and try to find it, like you say, we've talked about already, you can drink a whole lot of water out there, and it's not going to do anything except irrigate you. It's not going to hydrate your cells. It's going to irrigate your body, and you're just going to be running back and forth to try to relieve yourself. Now, I think we didn't mention the fellow that I can't forget his name. You probably know his name better than I do. I have a little bit of trouble pronouncing it. The fellow that wrote Your Body's Many Cries for Water.
Dr. Batman Gajli.
Yes.
From Iran, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, he did some his scenario for research was quite different than ours, but his heart was into it all the same. You want to share with us maybe a little bit of his story of what he went?
He simply was taking people with every diagnosed condition imaginable, getting them to drink as much water as they possibly could, and adding salt to it. Once again, improved electrical flow. And he had people coming out of every disease known to man, which he documents in his book. Now, he was a medical doctor, so I don't have to go over the same ground. Nobody does. He did the work. So we can trust the fact that his research was very thorough. He was very careful about what he did, and very, very good at documenting.
Well, what was interesting, Dan, was that he was imprisoned.
He was in prison, yeah.
Yeah, unrightfully imprisoned there.
Political prisoner,
Yeah, and when they offered to let him out,
he wouldn't leave because he hadn't completed his research. He wouldn't leave.
Now that's somebody that's committed to helping people, right there, and that's what we're trying to, in the same vein, folks. That's what we're trying to talk about. Dan, that's what Dan's about too, folks.
Yeah,
Dan is committed to trying to help people. It means it's in his heart to do that.
So I'm gonna have to leave your call now.
All right, Dan.
Before I do, let me say this: they fly me all over the United States to do workshops and seminars, and I can actually talk for several hours on the water alone. So what you got today was a little soundbite.
Yes, indeed.
And I tried not to get too technical about the physics and so forth. So there's a lot more to this than meets the eye, and I can go on for hours about it. So we gave you an introduction, and so take it from there, Elder.
All right, Dan. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Sir. Bye-bye. Well, folks, we had Dan on with us from Montana there, and I have to tell you, if it wasn't for Dan, I wouldn't be here today. There's no doubt about it. And he's a very, very brilliant man, and as he said, there's people, his phone rings off the hook all day. He's counseling and working with people, sharing his time to try to help people understand what's going on and how to make some changes. We just saw the tip of the iceberg with Dan Nelson. He's an exceptional guy with a really, really big heart, and somebody that we want to have participating in the Commonwealth with us, without a doubt, and providing some of the understanding and knowledge that he has. So today, as I was saying, what we're trying to do is get our priorities straight and let you know that we're already putting donations toward this. We already have some of the Bionade on its way here from Dan right now for needy people that are needing it, if they can't afford it. And we need your help, fellow members in the Commonwealth, our fellow servants out there that are passing the stew. We're looking for folks to help, and we need your help. We need you to chime in with us. We need you to be a part, help us locate and find people that are in need so that we can donate these products to them on a first-come, first-served basis. As you know, that I have focused just to be an example because it's something I'm already involved with. I've been focusing with the American Veterans Association for Veterans. One of the things that was revealed by a ex-employee with Halliburton that 99% of the water containers in Iraq to service the showers and drinking water for our veterans in the field over in Iraq was contaminated. with all kinds of microorganisms that's made them sick. A lot of them are coming home, and they're bringing these organisms with them, and it's affecting their families. There's other things we're going to be addressing that they're bringing home with them. It has to do with the irradiation and the toxins that are coming from depleted uranium shells and shrapnel that's the soldiers are being hit with, and they're breathing it in too. These weapons are being used, and it's causing devastation in that country over there that's not just being confined to that country. It's getting in the air, and it's going around the earth. It's affecting the neighboring countries. They're already finding elevated levels and incredibly grotesque birth defects as a result. So one of the things we're going to be needing to help the veterans with is hydration and getting these things out of the body and to deal with these anaerobic gram-negative unhealthy microorganisms in the body as well. So we're wanting to address these issues with what I feel is the most valuable thing on earth, water, the very, very best water, with things extra due to the understanding of people like Dan Nelson and others that had developed these technologies to change water, to enhance it so that it's working for us in a way that you can't get it anywhere else. So it's a very, very valuable thing that we have here, make it available, and we want you to know where your donations are going, folks. Is going towards things like this. Also, donations are going towards helping people be involved with our outreach network to get them involved so that they can, instead of giving them a handout, they'll be getting a hand up. And they will be able to provide for themselves simply by seeking the kingdom of heaven first. As it's been told, if you seek the kingdom first, everything will be added to you. So we're getting rid of the thoughts and concepts and that is associated with our modern world, which has to do, by and large, with pride, with greed, with wantonness, and lust for the things of the world, and getting prepared for what's coming. We all know it. We all feel it. There's a bit of anxiousness about it to a certain degree. We know things are coming to a head. We need to be prepared with provisions for it. We need to do what we can. We need to do what we should have always been doing. The prudent individuals that are wise and prudent, they're always going to be prepared. They're going to have a place where they can get food and water, good drinking water, not polluted water. Another thing with the Bionade, if you're out in the wild and you can't get access to good drinking water from a machine or a filtering device of some type, and you have to rely on a river or a stream or a puddle in the road, you can add the Bionade to it and then shake it for 10 minutes, and you don't have to worry about any of the gram-negative, anaerobic, unhealthy microorganisms like E. coli, Giardia, all these things that can occur in water. You can even soak your vegetables and your produce in this. You can spray your pillow. Believe it or not, folks, you think your shower stall is a place, the number one place for germs in your house? Wrong. The number one worst place in your house where stuff is growing and developing is where you sleep every night. Your mattress and your pillow, especially your pillow. You can spray your pillow with this and will disinfect your pillow. And we're not dealing with any of the harmful chemicals or drugs and all of their detrimental side effects with this. These things are being eliminated. So this should be able to express to you in some way the value of what we're doing with the donations coming in and what we'll be using them for. to prepare, to do what we should do normally, and if we're prudent, what we should do to help each other and putting the donations towards something of value that is not going to go down in value like we're seeing the dollar going down right now. I mean, even if it's a coin, if it's a gold or silver coin, it can go up and down. We don't, understand who all is controlling this. It's very interesting. There was a court case recently where they were challenging these issues, where a employee was being paid, or the employer was paying his employees with gold coins, and they went to court because they were saying they were dollars. They were paying them with gold dollars. Well, they were being told and assessed, and they won their case, but they were being assessed for the Federal Reserve note value dollar of the coin. And what the court said was that an ounce of gold was worth $42 in change, not the around $700 market value that when you go to the pawn shop or wherever and try to find out what the value of gold is, and they tell you, well, it's around $700 an ounce. Well, that's not what the court said. The court said it was $42 and change. Well, the thing about these things that we need to survive on, how can you really put a value on it? Well, we've got a little bit of a value for exchange so that you appreciate it, and it a little bit, hopefully, with the pricing that's on it. It's very, very low compared to what the benefit is going to be for you health-wise and many other ways. So we're not trying to sell anything here today, folks. What I'm trying to do is explain to you that with the Free Waves Outreach mission, this is one of the avenues that we're going with the donations that are coming in from our members in the Commonwealth. It is going to be utilized with highest priority, first things first, the most important things that we can do. What we're going to be sharing with folks that are in need, as we're talking about supplying them with food and water, we want to supply them with the best food and water. We're talking about the water today, what we can do to supply the best water to them, free, at no cost to them, and to share with you something that we can do as well for those of that want it and can afford to get it. And you can find out more on the freewaves.tv website and on our iGroups platform, where we have the free web-based audio-video teleconferencing features that are free for members. We have the video chat, audio chat, and many, many things, which is our social platform. It's where our virtual meeting place is on the Internet, where we're extending the domain of the kingdom of heaven into this virtual reality that we see on the TV screens in front of us, our monitors. So you can find out more about there, because I really don't. That's not my intention, is to talk about the product itself or try to come off with any type of anything that makes it sound like, well, this is about trying to sell a product. It's not. It's about where we're putting some of the donations to do something that the value is going to not go down, folks. It's going to go up, if anything, the value, because, as I was saying earlier, they're talking about water right now at the UN. They're probably talking about putting this stuff like chloramine in the water and control water. Possibly water rights is going to be discussed. I feel that this is one of the things that's going to be coming out, and we're going to hear about it, the rights of water. So it's a very, very precious thing. And my very, very dear friend, Billy Joe Spurlock in Oklahoma, told me about 20-some-odd years ago, he said, Elder, he's one of the top astrophysicists on the planet, worked with Einstein and those guys. Incredible man, incredible. I can tell you some stories that would seem extremely fantastic about him. But he told me many years ago, water is going to be the most valuable substance on the earth. Right now, quality, pure, high-quality grade bottled water is more expensive than oil. So it's going to go up. As you see the earth drying up around you right now in these times, it's not that hard to see the value and the importance and why I have placed a priority on water as far as something that we want to have, especially water that's going to deal with the potentials that we keep hearing about with plague and viruses and illnesses that people are suffering from. And we're going to be talking about more things that have to do with health to help people as well in upcoming broadcasts with Free Waves Radio. I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate you taking the time to hear this broadcast. I appreciate Dan. I appreciate so much. And I'm grateful to have this knowledge to share it with you, to offer some solutions. It's no good to just bring up problems, and that's what we mostly hear about, is problems and no solutions. And people that are coming up with solutions don't seem to have the right answers. But if we're seeking with pure heart and we're looking through the lens of love, we know where to take the next step. We know what we can do to address these issues if we're doing that, and what to do. And that's what we're doing with this spiritual outreach mission, with the Free Waves outreach mission for the Commonwealth, for us as one people, one big family, working together, passing the stew. Those of you that have read the website and understand the mission statement, you understand what I mean with passing the stew. It's about us helping each other, not about just helping ourselves and taking. It's understanding the principles of love, about giving to one another. And we give to one another. We find that it comes back to us by natural course, by divine plan. It comes back to us. If we give, it always comes back with a generous heart, not without any expectation. But with what we have together with our Free Waves Outreach mission, we have designed some things into it so that we know that it's organized and predetermined in such a way that there will be rewards returned to you for your participation. And we want you to know that for your participation, the money that's going in towards donations, it's being spent in a proper way that's going to help people and save lots of lives, I believe, with all my heart. So I thank you for listening to the broadcast. Be sure to check freewaves.tv for broadcasts. This was totally unscheduled, this broadcast today. It was, matter of fact, it was scheduled last night. I sent out a few emails about it, but it was totally at a spur of a moment because of the timing. Sometimes that's just the way it is. So sometimes you will see we'll have some broadcasts scheduled more ahead in advance so that you'll know about it ahead of time. But please do visit the homepage at freewaves.tv and check the Free Waves Radio banner for upcoming shows as often as you can so that you will be aware. And if you want to participate and ask questions, you're welcome to do so on the broadcast live. So with that said, again, thank you very much for participating and taking time to listen. You can share this. It'll be archived. You can share it later and listen to it later. Hopefully, it's supposed to be archived by TalkShoe.com. We're grateful. Kudos to TalkShoe.com for providing this for us in our format over at the iGroups. Bo Bennett, we appreciate Bo Bennett for providing unlimited free membership to use the audio-video conferencing features internationally to share with your friends, veterans overseas, folks wherever you may be. You can see them and talk live through the web, audio-video conferencing or chat. So again, thank you so much. Appreciate you listening and taking time to be with us today. And we look forward to talking with you again soon. Thank you so much. God bless.